The Girl Who Owned a City, Chapter 16 and 17. The evening of May 23rd was warm and sultry. Lisa and Todd sat on their jackets and watched Swift Road for a sign of life. The Arco station was deserted except for the dancing reflections of the moon and clouds in the faces of the gas pumps. "What time is it, Todd?" 5 minutes to 12. She said nothing more until a distant rumbling was heard. "What's that? Do you think it's them?" They peered intently into the darkness. Finally, the sounds took form. A convertible with its top down led the procession. 3 soldiers accompanied a boy in the front seat. That must be Charlie, Lisa thought. The car was followed by a large dump truck with 20 soldiers in the back. 3 open Jeep 4x4s and 2 cars were next. Each was filled with soldiers. At the end, another convertible with 4 more soldiers and a driver. The convoy stopped where Swift Road met North Avenue. For a few minutes, everything was dark and silent. "What's the matter? Why isn't he signaling?" Todd asked. Then a light flashed from the lead car. Todd and Lisa counted the seconds. 10, 30, 60. There was another flash of light. Then another. When the signal had been repeated 12 times, Lisa and Todd walked across North Avenue and approached the first car. "Charlie, it's good to see you." She shook his hand and was in command again. "Gather all your soldiers around the Jeep in the middle, quickly, and tell them to be quiet." None of the soldiers, not even Charlie, knew what was planned for that night. They all wanted to cheer when they heard the voice above them on the roof of the Jeep. "We have a long wait ahead. At daylight, we'll start a tour. It will be our first trip away from Glen Ellen. We'll visit other cities in search of an army. When we find one that we think we can trust, then we'll make a deal with them to help us recapture Glenbard. We'll go to Lombard first, then to Villa Park, and then to Wheaton. If we can't find what we want, we'll try other cities. But you there," she said impatiently to a restless soldier. "Did you hear what I just said?" He didn't answer. "Pay attention to what I'm saying. We can't take any chances tomorrow. Who knows what we'll find in those other towns? There might be armies that will try to kill us on the spot. We must be ready, and we can't make any mistakes, so pay attention." The soldiers rested for a time while Lisa and Charlie sat by the gas pumps discussing the plan. When they agreed on a better way to do something, they would rouse the soldiers for more briefings. Lisa carried the plan beyond the events of the next day. Her strategy brought them to the morning of May 26th, when Charlie's soldiers and a hired army of thousands would recapture the city. The general criticized her. "Lisa, why get ahead of ourselves? Let's take the plan one day at a time." "No, Charlie. We have to plan the whole strategy to make sure that everything fits together. Then we can adjust it each day, as we need to, until the 26th. They spent the whole night talking it through. The soldiers slept, were awakened, and then slept again. By morning, the plan was fixed in everyone's mind. The 8 vehicles and the army of 55 were ready. At dawn, the motorcade began the journey to Lombard. The children were tired and some were frightened by what they might discover in the outside world, but they all kept to their assigned positions in the vehicles. The kids in the towns they passed were amazed by the long motorcade. Fearing the brigade had come to do them harm, they ran into their houses. No one in these cities had yet learned to drive. The sight of one moving automobile would have surprised them, but to see 8 cars and trucks filled with armed soldiers made them shudder with fear. The motorcade stopped many times in Lombard. Lisa and Charlie tried to learn who the town leaders were. A few of the less fearful children stayed outside to watch the procession. Charlie would call out to them, "We've come in peace. Who is your leader? Where is your headquarters?" They stopped at least 20 times, but no one would answer Charlie's questions. Lisa and Charlie decided that there was no army in Lombard. The town was dirty and lifeless. The motorcade moved to Villa Park. What they saw there was something that no one wanted to speak of. It was a town that hadn't survived. Death was everywhere. The children felt its presence on every street of the town, and they didn't need to look inside a single house to know what they would find inside. They drove away silently. In Wheaton, they found a leader, a headquarters, and an army, but not the alliance they were looking for. The general of Wheaton was a cruel, violent boy. "Get your army out of here," he said, "or my men will wipe you out. My name is Scott Donald Meany, and I have 200 soldiers." "Scott Donald Meany?" a voice called from the ranks. "You look more like a Scott Donald Duck." The small army of Glenbard laughed, and Lisa studied the angry general. He was shaking. He chose to ignore the insult. "You'll be smart if you just stay in your own town and don't stick your necks out of it again, ever." Then he told them why. "I'm going to join with the Chicago Army, and we'll be seeing you someday soon. So don't try anything clever, or you'll just give us a good reason to wipe you out right now." Then he started to brag. "The Chicago Army is huge. It has more than 2,000 soldiers. When Wheaton and the other towns join up, it'll have even more, maybe as many as 5,000 by this summer. When we're ready, we'll start to capture towns like yours, one at a time, until we control the whole state. He talks too much, Lisa thought, but he wasn't finished yet. If you're smart, you'll join us. If you're not smart, you'll regret it. The King of Chicago is powerful. He'll make you a good offer. You'll have a chance, and you better take advantage of it. Now get out of here. Suddenly he held up his hand. But wait, what's your leader's name? Is he here? I want to give his name to the king. When Lisa stepped forward, the boy laughed. It can't be. He laughed again, and this time he looked at the 55 soldiers. A girl, he mocked. What's the matter with you guys? You must be some tough army. Lisa had never wanted to hurt anyone, not even Tom Logan, but now she smashed her fist into his face of the Wheaton general. He reeled backward but stayed on his feet. The blood from his nose confused him long enough for the motorcade to pull away. A girl, he thought, as he stared after them in amazement. Well, said Charlie to Lisa, we've got another enemy now, Scott Donald Duck. They roared with laughter. Suddenly serious again, Charlie added, that Chicago Army stuff scares me. What do you think of it, Lisa? The King of Chicago, she said. What a dumb name for a leader. Why not President or Premier? Is this the Dark Ages or something? Neither of them answered. They both knew that it was like the Dark Ages. Kings and brutality and plagues and death were again a part of the life. And Lisa knew that Logan was only her first enemy, not her last. If she recaptured Glenbard, she would be facing even bigger armies in the future. The Dark Ages wouldn't end for a long time. Where to now, Lisa? Charlie asked. Well, we could look at other towns, but I really don't think we'll find anything much different. We're going to have to revise our plan tonight. We'll just have to do it without a big army, Lisa thought a while. Driver, she said, turn here, left. Lisa led the motorcade safely back to the farm on Swift Road, but it wasn't the quiet farm that they had expected to find. The high flames and smoke in the farmyard reminded Lisa of her burning house. The loud voices made her think of the past battles and celebrations. Which was it? She wondered as the motorcade came to rest in front of the farm. Was it a party or was it trouble? It was definitely a party. There were shouts and cheers of joy as she walked toward the crowd in the farmyard. They had been singing the Glenbard song and waiting for the return of the motorcade. The orange and yellow flag of Glenbard was flying high above the bonfire. Yes, they were celebrating. Someone had learned that Lisa was alive and staying at the farm on Swift Road. The rumor had spread quickly through the city, and this group must have sneaked out after Charlie. Charlie! Lisa was angry now. How could this happen? How did they find out? Do you realize what could happen? This could be our big mistake. Logan might come here after us. Even if he doesn't, now he'll be on guard every minute against an attack. Tell me, Charlie, how could they have found out? Only you and Todd knew about it. Charlie couldn't say anything. He stood there with his mouth open, thinking. Finally, he said, Lisa, I swear I didn't tell a soul. I swear it. I can't imagine how they found out. I didn't even say we were going to the Arco station. She believed him, and then she remembered Jill. They must have tortured her, she thought. The crowd wanted Lisa to speak to them. They cheered and shouted, We want Lisa! We want Lisa! But her mind was on other things, very serious things. Would Logan come tonight? What happened to Jill? Was she hurt? What should they do next? Could they still attack on the 26th? Could this bunch in the farmyard serve as an army? All through the night, the crowd grew louder. They kept shouting, Lisa! Lisa! We want Lisa! But she didn't speak to them. Instead, she sat alone in a room inside the farmhouse and replanned the strategy. The words of caution came back to haunt her. Take no chances. Look at all the possibilities. Mistakes are costly. Think. Plan. Be logical. Take no chances. Outside, the noise continued. No, she couldn't speak to them yet. When her plan was ready, she would talk. After all, you should only speak when you have something to say. Mysteriously, the crowd was growing larger by the hour. How was it possible? Where did they all come from? Those 200 and then 300? What happened at the city? The answer, if she'd had time to look for it, could have been seen on Swift Road across North Avenue, down the old route to Grand Avenue, and finally past the lake to the castle itself. The roads were filled with a scream of pilgrims carrying their last belongings and food and guns to find the leader who had come back from the dead. But in the darkness of her room, Lisa's courage wavered. I'm not what they think, she said to herself. I don't know if we can do it. I just don't know. The moment of weakness left her as she turned her thoughts to the problem, the one she knew she could solve. Enough doubting, she warned herself. I've got to make this plan right. Perfect. No chances, no mistakes. All that night and the next day, Lisa kept herself in her room. Is this the 25th? She wondered. By tonight, I must have the plan ready. The crowd of 300 waited patiently outside. In the warm spring air, they never doubted that everything would be all right and that she would figure something out. Todd came to work by her side. Together, by candlelight, they looked at the plans and drawings. To those waiting outside, it seemed like they would never come out. "What are they doing in there?" the children asked. "Why don't they come out here? Why can't we go get Logan?" Charlie assured them, "It's an important plan, a very important plan. We can't make any mistakes and we can't take any chances. You have to trust her. She knows what to do." And when Lisa was ready, when she told them the new plan, it went into effect immediately. In what seemed to be almost the next moment, the crowd was at the castle. They took positions in the woods by the walls and the trees around Glenbard. No one made a sound while Lisa crept through the secret tunnel alone. Would he be in the chamber? Was her gun loaded? Did she have the key ready? Would there be guards? Was she wrong? She emerged from the tunnel inside the fortress, but there were no guards anywhere, no children anywhere. What was the matter? She was more nervous than she could have been if they had been everywhere. She went through the basement. There were no guards, no citizens. Up the stairs to the main floor, nothing, not a soul anywhere. She went down the corridor. It was deserted, lifeless. She found her way to the old chamber and turned the key. Logan was sitting there as he had been, waiting. "Hello, Lisa," he said, and then added, "Sit down. I want to talk to you." She hadn't expected this. "I can't handle your city, Lisa. You win. Your citizens rebelled and just walked out. How could I stop them? What could I do? Lisa, I'm sorry for the shooting. Really sorry. I told them not to shoot. It was an accident. I didn't really want you to get hurt. And your friend Jill, they'll tell you that I hurt her too, but I didn't. We just scared her a little. She's safe in a room downstairs. We just scared her, Lisa. That's all. Your citizens found out where you were. I think she told them, and I threatened to hurt her if the others left, but they were too busy running away to hear me. They just walked out. What else could I do? They hated me from the start. What could I do?" Is he asking my opinion? She wondered. Logan seemed spent and weary. He had faced problems of the city, and he didn't care any longer. He was beaten. "Okay, let's talk," Lisa said, and she laid the gun on the table beside the candle. It was a trick. In an instant, he grabbed the gun, aimed it at her, and shouted a signal to 50 hidden guards who soon filled the hall outside. For the second time in the history of Glenbard, the gang leader was smiling victoriously at her. Chapter 17. The door closed. Lisa and Tom were alone in the tower chamber. She forgot about the danger for a moment and thought about the many hours she had passed in front of this candle in the dark room. She had spent entire nights planning for the future and worrying and hoping. Now she was back, but the room didn't belong to her. Why should it? She wondered. How could I fall into such a simple trick? She didn't deserve the room or the city. "What does it have to be this way, Tom?" she said, not knowing where the conversation would lead. "Why do we have to fight? You know I don't want to fight. Have I ever attacked you before? This time I'm only defending what's mine. What is it about you that makes you want to fight and steal? Are you afraid that you can't earn things for yourself? Why do you need to steal what others have worked for?" Tom listened, but he couldn't reply. She had found his weakness, and that was painful. Lisa went on, "What good is your life, Tom? Did you ever wonder about that? What fun is there in your kind of dirty business? What good is there in making people afraid of you? Why do you need slaves or soldiers? Who are afraid of you? You depend on fear. You start with your soldiers' fear of death and starvation, and then you add to that your own fear of failure, and I think you fear building a better life with your own brains. You know, Tom, that's what it is. You don't have the guts to depend on your own resources. No, you'd rather be tough and take what someone else has worked hard for. Do you have any idea what this city cost me, Tom? I paid for this place with hard work. I didn't steal anything that belonged to anyone else. I just used my head. And then you. You come along with your army and your guns and decided that my work was ripe for the harvest." Tom had no answer. He put the gun down on the table and slumped into his chair. He couldn't think of a reply or a boast or a threat. He was silent. Lisa watched the gun, but didn't pick it up. She had a much better weapon now, his fear. She had Tom Logan against the wall. He had no more defenses. She would drive home the final blow. "You're afraid of life and your ability to earn your way through it. I feel sorry for you. You don't know what real fun is." She wanted to give him the great king's happiness advice, but Logan wasn't ready for it. She picked up the gun and pointed it at him, her finger on the trigger. Then she made a decision. She put the weapon back down. "You're free, Tom," she said. "Go away and take your army with you." He said nothing and moved to the door. She added, "I'd like to be able to like you, Tom." Within minutes, the Chichester, Elm, and Lennox army was walking away from Glenbard. Lisa closed the chamber door. Her gun was sitting on the table near her old familiar candle. Alone, she said out loud. It felt good to be back. She wandered around the room, deep in thought, while her city filled with happy citizens. The hall was crowded, and they were waiting to see her. There was a knock at the chamber door. It was Todd. Well, we're back, aren't we, Todd? She smiled at him. They want you to speak to them, Lisa. What? About what? There are hundreds of them out there. Let me rest a minute. You should go to sleep, Todd, over there on the couch. I'll tell you a story tomorrow. Will that be all right? You must be tired, she said. You haven't slept in days, have you? I'm tired too. Maybe one day soon we can take a vacation somehow, somewhere. Lisa gazed at her brave little brother. He had already fallen asleep. After a time, the noise from the hall distracted her. What do they want? She wondered. What do they waste their time shouting for me? Why don't they spend the effort on something else? She sat back down and lit the candle. It was her thoughtful candle. The flame had inspired the plans that had made her city. The shouts from the hall became insistent. We want Lisa. We want Lisa. It sounded as though all the citizens were there waiting and chanting. She wanted to please them, but she didn't know what to say. Should she tell them about the great king or the king of Chicago? Should she mention the army of 5,000 that might attack their city? She had to speak to them. It was her job. She paused by the door, not wanting to make her appearance and not wanting to spoil her hard earned peace. Lisa stood for a long time with her hand on the door latch. I don't know how, she thought, but I'll figure out a way to show them what I know. We have to make plans. We have to prepare. The girl who owned the city walked through the door into the waiting crowd of happy children.